This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. I'm Paul Catalina. We'll be alongside Jacob Wilson in a minute. He was unfortunately delayed, not detained. Detained makes it sound like he got arrested on the way here, but he's not arrested, Garrett. He's fine. He's not. I would,
You want to put that on him?
Yeah. I don't want to put that on him. He had an appointment, ran long. That's fine. And this was such a crazy, crazy football weekend. I don't really need it, other than just you to bounce things off of this first. I don't need our normal co-host because we can just throw out a game like Notre Dame, Ohio State that you and I sat here and watched in the studio the other night. And for the first time in my life, I felt bad for Notre Dame.
That's fair. I think Sam Hartman played elite, but the way that game ended for them, you definitely got a feel for the Irish.
Yeah. Ohio State, though, answered the bell. Hey, are they tough enough? Does Lou Holtz calling me out? Oh, yeah, guess what? We're going to hold you to, 16 points or 14 points. And, they played tough. They played really tough on defense. Offensively, both those teams struggled the entire night. It was a really good game, but it was Prove It Weekend, and in Prove It Weekend, we saw some teams, step to the forefront. We saw some other teams step back. I don't think this changes much for Notre Dame or Ohio State. If the score was flipped, I would think, these teams are going to be in contention until later.
Yeah.
Ohio State shows me, especially as you get down the stretch in the Big Ten, that there's three real-deal teams in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, and that will be a battle. That will be a fight. It should be fun to watch and see what happens out of those three.
I think for me, I took more away from it from the Notre Dame perspective as of you had limited opportunity to have a clear path to the college football playoff. You blew a tire in this situation, and then now when you look at your schedule coming up this week, this week I think they have Louisville. Then you have Duke, which is not a gimme game. I think Duke can definitely beat Notre Dame.
They do have Duke this week. Duke this week, and Louisville's been pretty good. So
okay, yeah. And then after that, you have USC. So you're in a situation there where you could lose one or two more games, and more than likely will in that situation, and your shot at the college football playoff is done.
Yeah. Duke, Louisville, USC, back-to-back.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And then their schedule does get easier. Pitt, Clemson, Wake Forest, and Stanford.
But then it could be too late.
And I'll just tell you, we'll talk about Clemson and Florida State in a minute because this will be the only opportunity I have to wax rhapsodic about that game. But Clemson is still really good. They're just not what they have been. They're a level down, so that's still going to be a tough one. So you've got, looking at the schedule, Louisville. Look, they're not ranked, but Jeff Brom has got them playing pretty well.
Right, yeah.
And it's at Louisville. So, again, when you're Notre Dame, you're going to go in places people are going to be hyped. I think they'll probably be fine, but that Duke game's going to be Prove It A was Notre Dame. Prove It B was the upstart Duke team who plays super physical and plays a style in which you just got out of a game that they played defensively. So, that's going to be really interesting to see down the line what Notre Dame does. For Ohio State, look, I'm not completely sold that, that's a great win for them, but they're still going to have ups and downs because I don't think they really know who they are yet. They got Maryland, who with Tailua Tagovailoa is going to be pretty interesting. That'll be tough. They pushed them to the brink last year, if you remember. Maryland did. They've got a Purdue team that's Jack, just give me a hand gesture of describing Purdue's season. Yeah, so thumbs down. He gave me a thumbs down.
Yeah,
he gave me a thumbs down. And then they have Penn State, who, after we saw that, I know we're kind of Big Ten heavy in this first segment, but what the hell?
Hey, they deserve it.
Absolutely beat down Iowa on Saturday night, and
61 total yards of offense for Iowa.
Yeah,
something ridiculous like that.
That's not going to 31-0. Yeah, 61, 75, whatever it was. Less than 100 yards of total offense in 4 quarters.
Stupid.
And you are trying to say that your offense is fixed? I'm sorry. You can still get punched in the nards there by Penn State, and your offense isn't fixed. Your offense was good against teams that, honestly weren't that good. And then you played one really elite team, and they stroked you. 24. They scored 24 points, 20 points, and then 41 against Western Michigan. So Utah State, Iowa State, Western Michigan, 3-0, roll into their first real test of the season and got wood chippered.
Yeah.
Absolutely wood chippered by Penn State, who James Franklin has spent the last couple years kind of in the void a little bit, in my opinion. Of course, there are all these, like, he was the guy there are all these rumors about, like, you know, USC or whatever. Look, Penn State is an A-plus job.
Absolutely is.
And there's only a few jobs I would leave Penn State for if I were James Franklin. So, yeah, there's going to be a bit of a void. And look, before James Franklin, there were two other coaches, one of whom went to the NFL, and the other whom was Joe Paterno. And I'm not going to get into the scandal, but, like, Penn State's an administration that appreciates a guy who's just going to be there. So
it's very Steelers-esque.
Yes.
Like you there's very few programs in the nation who approach things the way Penn State does. And I think more programs should honestly look at how Penn State's handled James Franklin and how Clemson handled Dabo, and just give coaches and right now time to actually build the programs, because there's so many times where we see guys come in, take a new job or whatever, and within a couple of years they're already wanting, you know, there's always this mass exodus to get the guy out, and it's just a broken cycle and sets programs back. Whereas Penn State, and Clemson for that matter, while not every year has been ideal, they've always been consistent. They've always been strong in building, and it shows that if you give the right guy time, he can actually bring you and build a championship caliber pedigree around your program.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, those are two huge games on Prove It weekend. You know, look, I think, and we'll talk about this on the main show later on today at length with Texas and Baylor because we covered that game. But I do think that in a minor way, Texas and Baylor was a Prove It game because it was prove that you can go in on the road somewhere that's not going to be a big game, you know, that's not going to be Alabama, and do exactly what you're supposed to do. And Texas did that. Like, they went in, and teams that win the national championship, teams that contend for conference titles, teams that are in the CFP, they do what they have to do when they have to do it, the way that they're supposed to do it, and that's what Texas did the other night. It's not going to be one of their bigger wins of the season, but for a team that's re-emerging on the national stage, I do think it was important to go in and get a big win over somebody that in a situation where it's the last time you're going to play a long-time conference team. You've played this thing over 100 times.
Right.
All of those things going into it, and just any emotion that could have happened for Baylor, they took it out almost immediately.
I also think a counterpoint to that is watching how Texas was able to overcome the two muff punts that Baylor was able to recover, and both of them were essentially had Baylor set up deep in Texas territory, and their defense was able to come out and stand. They held Baylor to one field goal opportunity, and then they got like a 6-yard sack. I believe it was a 6-yard sack on 4th and 5 that put Baylor behind the chains, and they came away with nothing. I think just being able to respond. Now, granted, you could probably say, or you could make an argument that Baylor's offense is bad, and they've struggled in the red zone all year long. But to me, for Texas to be able to step up in that point and not let Baylor capitalize on their mistakes is progress in where I think in years past, that's touchdowns easily against Texas, and they're behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there are times, like, muffed punts, like all those things that happened to them, they overcame it and didn't get in the way. Another one on Prove It weekend, Oregon proved who they were.
Yeah.
I don't think, and we'll talk about this in the last segment when Jacob gets here, but there was no, like, there's no reason to change your mind about Deion and what he's doing.
No.
Because this was going to happen to them a couple times probably. What he's doing is so unprecedented, but their team is not established yet. They're playing with a ton of momentum and a ton of confidence, but eventually you're going to get into somebody who is got the same momentum, got the same confidence, but is a better team than you. That's what happens in year one of things. Deion took over a team that was 1-11. He didn't take over a team that was 11-1.
Exactly.
So this isn't that story. This is a different one. So what he's doing, still super impressed. Didn't change anything, but you kind of knew that this might be coming, especially with the deficiencies that they've had through these other games, Oregon, with their defense, which is way improved, which shouldn't be a shock considering that it's year 2 of Dan Lanning, the dude who was part of building Georgia's national championship defenses, and that that Oregon has this prolific offense full of stars like Bo Nix and Bucky Irving and Troy Franklin. I mean, this is a really good team.
Oregon looked like a team who is built for a college football playoff opportunity, and Colorado looked like a team who is in their first year. I mean, it was plain as day. I'm not surprised. I don't think anybody, honestly, who realistically looked at the circumstances and everything surrounding both of these teams going into that game should be shocked that Oregon won the way they did. And if they're the people out there, the broken narrative that you'll find on Twitter of, oh, my God, Colorado didn't have Travis Hunter. I'm sorry. You could have 2 Travis Hunters, and he wasn't going to make up 35 points in that game. There's no way in hell that was going to happen.
No. Look, he might have made a play or two and made it, down to 28.
Yeah, but it wasn't going to close the gap like that.
No. Travis Hunter does not block people, nor does he stop people from running the ball immediately.
Exactly.
If Travis Hunter's making the tackle on a runner, it's either a fantastic play he's made shooting into the backfield, or
it's saving a touchdown.
It's saving a touchdown because he's a cornerback. And he's on offense, he's a wide receiver. Yeah, maybe, Shadur can throw one up to him, but when he's under constant duress like he is, that was going to be the problem for them. And they knew it. You know who knew it? Deion knew it. I do like that he and Dan Lanning kept the little thing, I told him he's lucky he got me this year. And the thing is, they keep it. When are they going to play again? They might
maybe a bowl game. That's your only
bowl
chance.
game, a playoff. Yeah, but so keep it good. Keep it spicy. I'm happy for them to keep it spicy. Yeah. I think that's fine. I'm all for that. Now, that was a huge one, and there was a lot talked about. I don't think the discourse on it has been full of common sense because again, it doesn't change. And look. Colorado and USC are playing this week at 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, and Caleb Williams and that offense. Look, I think Colorado will score more against USC than they did against Oregon.
Yeah, they should.
I think they'll probably give up the same amount of points because they've given up that same amount of points in every single game this year, save Nebraska. But they've given up points in every game this year. So they're going to give up points. That's what they're going to be. But I don't think anybody's going to pick them to win against Caleb Williams.
No, I mean, there's no way you should. I think Caleb Williams is going to pick them apart. I mean, but you're going to see some big plays from Colorado. I don't. Even if they would, if Colorado would have won one game, and say they lost to TCU like most people expected on and bounce, I think when the schedule came out, regardless of seeing Colorado on paper, everybody knew Oregon and USC back to back were going to be losses. So I don't understand why anybody would be shocked at the current situation that Colorado finds themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on one thing, and I need to get our final pick'em standings from last week.
I feel like I probably lost. I was going back and doing some work yesterday. I was like, this is not stacking up for me well.
Yeah.
I know I had 3 or 4 losses immediately.
So, one of those losses we'll talk about real quick, Utah and UCLA.
Yes.
We find out just before kickoff, Cam Rising not going to play.
No.
He's not going to play. And so look, this is my show. I don't care. I'll say the text of what I said. I sent you guys a text of the story, and I said, well, shit.
Yep.
Because we picked Utah because Cam Rising was going to play in the game. You picked UCLA because you believed that Cam Rising was not going to play in the game, or if he did, his effectiveness would be limited, and they wouldn't be able to score points. You were right. What we weren't right about is that Utah's defense is bad bleeping ass. Dude, they are tough.
And they're not even fully loaded. That was what got me. I was like, okay, if Utah gets Cam Rising back, they can score a little bit. But the not having the key people on your defense and everything, I thought would catch up with them against Chip Kelly in this offense. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and Dante Moore, hats off to him. He played great, but he looked like a freshman against a really, really good defense.
Yeah. I loved Oregon State and Washington State. We actually turned it off for a little bit
Yep.
we didn't turn it off. It
kept going out.
It kept going out. Like, your account is full, whatever. So then we're like, so I checked the score. I was like, hey, that's a touchdown game right now. So we turned it back on, and it was a nice finish. But Washington State held off Oregon State in a furious comeback in the fourth quarter. Washington State, I think, is legit.
They're so good.
Is a legit Pac-12 title contender right now. Cam Ward is so awesome to watch. That was really great. Now, in the SEC, you white knuckled through LSU and Arkansas, which is kind of a yearly thing.
Yes.
Like that game last year shouldn't have been as close as it was. It was close. It's just, that's a rivalry. I'm going to chalk that up right now, Garrett, to two things. LSU doesn't know what they can do yet.
No.
But
that was Arkansas Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was definitely Arkansas Super Bowl. LSU won. I think that's what they do. Survive and advance kind of a thing. Just keep moving on. They're still a really good team. They just haven't clicked back-to-back weeks yet.
No, and I think that I'm been concerned about the struggles between Jaden Daniels and finding his receivers. Malik Neighbors finally showed up against Arkansas, but that's been real inconsistent. That's one thing I'm not real certain on. And Jaden Daniels' decisions to take unnecessary hits on runs is something that drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah. All right. And the big story to me in the SEC was that, look, this doesn't change my mind much about Alabama, but they got really smart and played really well in the second half. Their defense played really well against an Ole Miss offense that I thought would be a lot more prolific than it was. And Jalen Milroe kind of took a little bit of control there. If you're Ole Miss and you're only going to give the ball to Quinshon Judkins 13 times against Alabama, I think you're going to lose in that game. Unless he's got 13 carries for 117 yards or 70 yards, and he's broken off a couple of big ones. He was averaging 4 yards a carry. Clearly, situationally, they weren't in the spots where they thought they could, especially as that game got kind of out of hand for them in the fourth quarter. But impressive. Nick Saban figured it out. I still think that team is going to be out of the college football playoff discussion.
Yes.
Eventually, because they've got more problems than solutions for the first time in a long time. But still impressed. Jalen Milroe, 17 of 21, 225, a touchdown and interception, and ran 16 times for 28 yards, and a lot of that had to do with some sacks that they gave up. You take it, so really 45 yards that he had after losing some yards and some sacks. But good. And Jace McClellan was good for them, 17 for 105. So I think Alabama is still going to be a factor in the SEC West race, but I don't think, and the SEC West might find themselves out of the conversation completely because
I think they should at this point. Yes.
Well, because look, everybody's taking a loss, right?
Each other. Yeah.
Everybody's taking a loss, right? Non-conference or otherwise. Bama's lost to Texas, A&M lost to Miami, LSU lost to Florida State, Mississippi State's lost twice, Ole Miss just lost to Bama. So, they have no more room for error. So if they want to get in the playoff in the SEC West right now, they're going to have to run the table on the way out. Alabama probably has the best shot at doing that, but I still don't think that. Well, no, LSU probably has the best shot at doing that
until this weekend because LSU is going to play Ole Miss, and I do not trust that. That's a game where I think Ole Miss has an opportunity. Well, if Ole Miss has an opportunity to beat LSU, I'm not completely sold on them, and if they do, then I think it's Bama's for the taking, unless you get that weird scenario where LSU beats Bama and it's a 3-way tie. But I think after this weekend, we'll have a clear idea of how the West will shake up in the SEC. I'm still not sold completely on Georgia as a whole. I think that I was hoping Auburn would be able to push them better this weekend, but after that abysmal performance against Texas A&M, there's no way in hell that's happening. So I think it's kind of Georgia's to run with, and the West is going to find themselves on the outside looking in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my thoughts on everything else. Jacob should be here in a minute, including Florida State and Clemson, and why this is even worse news for Clemson than than Dabo probably realizes in the exact moment. Also, haven't talked about Oklahoma really gritting out a defensive win against Cincinnati, which could change a lot of things when it comes to the Big 12. The Red River rivalry coming up soon, and Washington might be the best team of the Pac-12, and we're not talking about them quite as enough as we need to. That's all coming up next. This